Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. This is John McDougall. I am the event coordinator at Murder by the Book here in Houston, although we are actually not at Murder by the Book at the moment. Virtually, we are in my library. We're so excited for tonight's virtual event. But before I bring out our guest, just want to do a couple of real brief store announcements. Wanted to let everybody know, if you were not aware, we are open for browsing. We reopened in October. I think at this point, we are now open longer than we were temporarily closed. And doing appointments and all that. So we are open, and we hope everyone will come in and visit us. Of course, masks are still required, and we ask, we're limiting it to 6 people in the store at a time, just so we can safely social distance and keep everybody safe and comfortable. We realize that kind of everybody has different comfort levels, and we think about 6 in the store at a time gives everybody some space to spread out. So we hope that you will come see us. We do know that not everybody is getting out in the world just yet. So if you are looking for books and you don't want to come into the store, we are still doing curbside pickup. We don't have the table outside anymore because not as many people were taking us up on it. So just so we don't have to take the table in and out every day, if you do want to do curbside pickup, just give us a call when you pull up into the parking lot. Let us know what you were driving, and we are happy to run your books out to the car for you. Of course, we're always available at murderbooks.com. So if you want to order online, you can do that as well. We ship all over the country. And at the moment, we are offering free medium mail for all orders over $75. Also wanted to mention, we had some issues with it last night for the first time in a while, but sometimes when we do our virtual events, we have some comments pop up on Facebook that are spam that ask you to click away from the event and put in your credit card information to watch it. You don't have to do that. The event is free. You're watching it already. So please don't click away and give anybody your billing info to watch an event you're already watching. If any of those pop up, I will be blocking and deleting them as soon as I can, but sometimes their posting fingers are a little faster than my blocking fingers. So definitely keep an eye out for that. I wanted to mention that we have a lot of really great stuff coming up. So since the pandemic has started, we have done over 200 of these virtual events with over 300 authors. Next week, we are going to be chatting with Ragnar Jonasson, and we're super excited that the Icelandic ambassador for the U.S. is going to be chatting with him. Next Wednesday, we're going to be talking with Jeffrey Deaver. Next Thursday, Jake Tapper is going to be in conversation with Gillian Flynn. So if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel or liked us on Facebook, please do that so that way you can see all of the other great stuff that we have got coming up. But tonight, we are here to talk about Basil's War, Stephen Hunter's new book. And we're so excited to have Otto Penzler with us. So we are going to bring them out and get us started. And of course, as always, while they are chatting this evening, if you have questions for either of them, you can post those in the comments and I will relay them. So we are going to start with Otto and bring him out. How are you tonight, Otto?
I'm great. Hi, John. I'm so happy to be here.
Thanks so much for doing this with us.
My pleasure.
So for those of you who are tuning in, I have abbreviated Otto's bio just a little bit because he has done so much stuff. But Otto Penzler is the proprietor of the Mysterious Bookshop in New York City and is regarded as the world's foremost authority on crime, mystery, and suspense fiction. Penzler founded the Mysterious Press in 1975, which he later sold to Warner Books in 1989. He reacquired the imprint in 2010, and Books for 9 years was an imprint at Grove Atlantic. It is now an independent publisher that publishes original works by authors such as Thomas Perry, Joyce Carol Oates, Stephen Hunter, and reissues classic crime fiction through the mysteriouspress.com in partnership with Open Road Integrated Media. He is a prolific editor and has been nominated for 3 Edgar Awards and won twice for Encyclopedia of Mystery and Detection in 1977 and The Lineup in 2010. The Mystery Writers of America awarded him with the prestigious Ellery Queen in 1994 and the Raven, the group's highest non-writing award, in 2003. He has also been given a Lifetime Achievement Award by Noircon, the Strand Magazine, and Killer Nashville. As I said, he is going to be chatting with Stephen tonight about his new book, Basil's War, which I also wanted to mention we have signed book plates for. So if you have not ordered your copy already, Stephen was kind enough to sign some book plates and send those to us. So let's bring Steve out. How are you tonight, Steve?
I am very well.
Thanks so much for doing this with us.
Yeah, well, I have to say the trip from my sofa to the dining room table was pretty arduous, and I hope I don't pass out halfway through, but I'll try and stay coherent.
Awesome. So Stephen Hunter won the 2003 Pulitzer Prize for Criticism, as well as the 1998 American Society of Newspaper Editors Award for Distinguished Writing and Criticism for his work as a film critic at the Washington Post. He's the author of several best-selling novels, including Time to Hunt, Blacklight, Point of Impact, and the New York Times bestsellers Havana, Pale Horse Coming, and Hot Springs. He lives in Baltimore. If you and any of you who are watching our regular customers of the store, you know we've been lucky enough to host Steve in the store many, many times. So I'm so glad that we're able to do this virtually. So as I mentioned, if you guys have questions, you can please post those in the comments on Facebook and YouTube, and we will get to those in a little bit. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to Otto and let them chat, and I will see you guys in just a little bit.
Thank you, John. Hi,
Thank you.
Steve. Good to see you again.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. I'd like to just talk to you a little bit about Basil St. Florian, who is the lead character in Basil's War. You created this character for a short story called Casey at the Bat. That was about 10 years ago.
That's correct.
Which came from nowhere. I mean, I was used to reading your contemporary novels, mostly about Bob Lee Swagger and the whole Swagger family. And then when I asked you to write a story for a book called Agents of Treachery, you did. I was surprised to see a World War II British character, so different from what else you had been doing. How did you come to do that?
Well, it actually wasn't from nowhere. It was from the dark, dank past. It was from the year 1980. It was from my very first published novel called The Master Sniper. And in that book, I alluded to the hero's adventures as a Jedburgh, being a commando, an airborne commando, who parachuted into Normandy, June 6, 1944, to blow up a bridge. Didn't do much with it, but I always loved the Jedburgh unit. I loved the Jedburgh guys, and I always kept that in my mind. And all those years later, a very fine gentleman named Otto Penzler, perhaps you've heard of him, Mr. Penzler.
The best.
He asked me to do a short story. I can't write short stories. I have no talent for short stories. I don't get the form. I hate them. But you also offered me a certain sum of money, and I really like money. You know, I can't help it. I just like this stuff. So I decided to try it, and I couldn't come up with anything. And then I remembered that little nugget of a story. So I decided, or an anecdote, a paragraph of background, and I decided to tell that story. And I had to invent a British character. I killed off the French guy because I didn't feel like dealing with three. Two was enough. I killed him off in the parachute jump in. So I came up with Basil. He just appeared one night, and I just liked him so much. I had so much fun with him. I almost didn't finish the short story. I just wanted to play with his voice. I wanted to play with his mannerisms. I wanted to invent a background and a culture that produced him. And he was addictive to me. And so I wrote the story, as you know, and you published it. I guess the book was how many billions did it sell? It was a particularly big in Bangladesh, as I understand.
It actually sold pretty well in both hardcover and in England and in paperback in America.
Well, that makes me happy. And then jump forward another few years. Again, Mr. Penzler asked me to write a story, and there were some issues involved. Some things didn't work out. It just didn't work for a while. But then I came up with the idea of this British unit that Basil was a member of called the Special Operations Executive, which is the equivalent of our Office of Strategic Services. Both of these were the CIA and the Special Operations groups of World War II. And I thought I would do a Basil story. And I just, again, had fun. And the book was published, and people seemed to like it. You liked it. I never heard a bad thing about it. And eventually an opportunity arose to take that nugget and bury it in a longer narrative and to intensify, complexify, I guess you would say turn a novella into a novel. And it's something that I like is working within a very prescribed world. You know, I can never write Dune. I mean, I have to have rules. I have to have boundaries. I have to have dates. I have to have places. I have to have all that background locked in. And then I like to maneuver in that small compass. And so that's what I was able to do off the inspiration of Citadel, I was able to create, I think, that was certainly a longer, but I also think a deeper and a funnier and a more quickly moving and a more interesting story, which we're calling Basil's War.
Yeah, when you were writing Citadel, I remember I heard from you, and you said, "I'm having a problem with this story." And I said, "What's the problem?" And you said, "Length." And I said, "Is it too long or too short?" You said, "Too long." And I said, "Don't worry, it's not a problem." And you finished the story, and everybody loved the story. And I really, deep down in my heart, loved that story so much. I asked if you could expand it. And you did. You were able to do it in a fairly short period of time, and you finished Basil's War, and so we've published it. Yesterday was pub date, and I just love the book. What's really interesting is you were talking about how much fun you had with it, how much you liked doing it, how much you liked the character, and all the fun that you were having with it, and you know. I don't know how this works. To me, it's all miraculous. Anybody who can write a story, create characters, create a universe, which is what writers do, godlike. And you did this, and it comes through on the page. The fact that you had fun writing it is so transparent on the page. Everybody who's reading this book, and I'm not blowing smoke here, but I've been publishing books for 45 years. And I know when people are not being polite, saying, "Yeah, I really like that book," they're saying, "I really like that book." And I've heard that since the day people started reading it. I'm talking about professionals in-house, the artist who worked on the cover, which is a great cover.
It is a great cover. It's a fabulous cover.
Here it is.
Yeah. And show them at the airplane, which is a Lysander.
Yeah, and it goes around.
Yeah. See, it goes around to the other side.
Yeah, is that cool?
Very nice cover, yeah.
But the copy editor, the everybody who's been working on it has just said how much fun they're having with this book, and I'm not even slightly surprised. But as I was reading it, I was laughing. I was tense because there are so many chapters or sections of the book that end with, "Uh-oh. What happens now?" Cliffhanger, you could call it, if we're a movie. And it's just, to me, it's just a remarkable book, even though it's fairly short. It's not like your 500-page giant books that you normally write. It's much shorter, but every page is filled with cool stuff. So you can see, I mean, I think anybody who reads it will see the amount of fun that you had writing it. And I'm glad you had fun.
Well, I thank you very much. I think of it, I'm not sure this is a legitimate dichotomy or if it's just something I'm saying off the top of my head, but I try to think of it as, Graham Greene had a deal where he called his novels, but then he also wrote books that he called entertainments. I think most of his entertainments were better than most of his novels. I'm not a grand scholar, I'm just a reader. But that's what I think. I think Our Man in Havana was a entertainment. This Gun for Hire was an entertainment. And I thought of this as an entertainment. And as you said, I thought you summed it up exactly what my goal was. And that was cool stuff on every page. Yeah. And I always went for the cool. I always went for the wisecrack. I always went for this or that. Really sort of clever, unusual thing happening. I always went for a little bit of wit in trying to have Basil outfigure his, just as the people hunting him are closing in, and when they close in on him, they realize that he's swindled them once again, and he's in another neighborhood or something like that. And it was the cat mouse aspects of it. The joke is it's really not a cat and a mouse. It's two cats, and the alpha cat is not the one with the Gestapo behind it. It's the guy with the he ends up in a crummy fitting suit, and that annoys him a lot more.
The worst thing that happened to him, a bad suit.
He hates that suit.
But it's unusual to have a story with so much suspense, where things are, there's constant threats. Page after page, chapter after chapter, there are threats like, oh my God, now he's caught. Oh, how's he going to get out of this? This is constant, but also tremendous amount of humor. That's unusual. People writing funny stuff don't generally write suspense, and people writing suspense don't generally write humor. But here they are in the same book.
Well, I think I've got a streak of mordant humor in me, and there are times when it's appropriate, and there are times where it's not. And I felt like in previous books, which were about various assassination attempts and set in real-time America or against some terrible historic event like the invasion of Russia, that humor was not would not be a significant future. It would simply be inappropriate. But in this one, which, as again I say, took its inspiration from the green category of entertainment, I just kind of let it all go and didn't worry about what people thought. I just did stuff that I thought was pretty funny. And it's a very happy discovery that many other people are finding it kind of funny too.
Absolutely. It's set in World War II, at the time of World War II. And one of the things that was immediately noticeable with this book is it is so cinematic. And as I was reading this, I had the sense that you are a fan of World War II movies. I know you're inspired by Eric Ambler and Graham Greene and some of the other thriller espionage writers of that time. But I also see in this book, and I'm sure you did, I don't put words into your mouth, maybe you didn't, but I think you did. We're seeing the famous World War II movies with people like Errol Flynn and Leslie Howard, Jack Hawkins, all these witty, funny guys who are willing to, I'm risking my life again. Sure, why not? To them, it's just a great game. And it's called The Great Game, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And that is certainly true. I have seen far too movies for anyone's good. I was a professional film critic for 28 years back in the decades when there were professional film, when there was film criticism. It seems to have all gone away now. But in any event, I was formed by movies. I was influenced by movies. I was educated by movies. I was sunk in movies. I derived most of my values from movies, and particularly the movies of the late 40s and the 50s when I was very young. And at that age, the stuff just rushes straight to your subconscious, and it's there forever. It's there forever. I remember a movie I saw in 1953 much more clearly than I remember yesterday. So again, it's not a conscious decision to turn on the movie switch, but it just you can't really write a book in any persona except your own, and that's part of who I am and what I became and how I spent my life. And so it's present in ways that I'm not even might not even be cognizant of. But I did. There's a scene when they pull into a railway station, and in the original, it was just very prosaic. They arrived at the station and got out. But then I thought of all the great. The train was a magnificent fascination to the 30s and the 40s. I mean, it was the center of transportation. There were no real airlines yet. The only one that had airplanes was the government, and so many filmmakers were taken by the drama and the pictorialism and the even somehow you could get the smell in of the railway station, of the arrival, of the excitement. And when I came to write that segment of the book, I just took a couple of graphs and indulged all my memories of train stations in 30s and 40s and 50s movies. And when I was done, I had a couple of graphs riff on the train station. And it just, it was as much an homage. It was, strictly speaking, it wasn't necessary to the forward push of the plot, but it was just such a pleasure to pay an homage to all that imagery that had been so provocative and had lodged so precisely in my memory, and that's kind of where all this stuff comes from. It's not as I say, it's not when I do an outline, I don't say, oh, be sure to bring in the scene from Casablanca. It's not like that. It's just that the stuff plays out against a template that I'm familiar with in a kind of hazy, archetypal way. It's a very interesting to me. And I mean, it's not just interesting, it's just loads of fun.
I'm not as well versed in film as you are, but I'm a great fan of 1940s movies.
Oh, me too.
30s, 40s, and 50s to me, those were the great films. And war films. There were a lot of war films being made at that time for a variety of reasons, and entertaining ones, and some had high budgets, some didn't. But one of the scenes in Basil's War is a scene that I think I've seen 10 times in World War II movies, on the train, where Basil is being hunted and he's stuck on a train. This isn't like being out on the sidewalk where you can run. You're in a train, a moving train, and the train is filled with Nazis. And he is at great risk, and how he gets out of that impossible situation, to me, is one of the great scenes in this book, or any book, just as it would be a great scene in any film. But you've seen that film before, where somebody is sitting there, they're shaking, they're white, they're scared to death, but trying to look nonchalant as the Gestapo or other military people are coming looking for that person. And you get it perfectly in Basil's War.
Well, thank you so much. And like you, I've seen that scene 10 times. I have to say that writing books in general, novels in general, and particularly this kind of novel in general, people don't understand that it's mainly an issue of solving problems. You might have an overall arc. You almost certainly have an overall arc. You have scenes that you want to do, that you want to get to, that you're sort of wanting to write those scenes is what's propelled you through the other scenes. But mainly what you're doing is just trying to figure out little bits of business that makes stuff work. And as you say, that scene is, again, it's a standard in 40s espionage films. And I tried, and in a sense, it helps me to know that and to have seen those films, because one of the things I'm then able to do is try and come up with some new wrinkle on it. And this is a book of new wrinkles. It's old material, but it's new wrinkles. That's what I'm selling here. And in that particular sequence, I thought I came up with some gags that were original that I hadn't seen anymore. I mean, I thought worked out well. And it was one of the things about this book is it's not a book of gunfights or shoot 'em outs. And he never ever uses force. He always uses wit. He's always one jump ahead, even when he seems not to be. And that was lots of fun. I mean, it's not that I'm giving up gunfights. Believe me, that's meat and potatoes to me.
You do.
No, I'm serious. No, not that. But it was just It was just great. Shit, I keep coming back. I hate to sound so repetitive, but it was so much fun coming up with other. I could have had him pull out a Luger and blow away the Nazis and take over the engine and I don't know, take the engine to Switzerland or something like that. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to just for it to sort of work out in a much neater, quieter, crisper, more fun way.
Yeah, I didn't mean, and I don't think if you or anybody would take it that way to say that, oh, this scene has been done over and over again, and you did it. No. It's a familiar scene. We all have the movies, if we've gone to the movies or we've read a lot of books. There are certain scenes, certain incidents that are common. And then the greatness of the really good writers like you, if I may say so, find the right variation on that theme. Mozart could do it with music. Rachmaninoff did it. Did a Rhapsody on a theme of Paganini. The great artist can find a way to take the familiar and then make it original.
This is particularly true of the great directors, and that they return to themes over and over again, and they make the same movie over and over again, but it's always fresh, it's always new, and they come up with the same solutions, but they do it from an entirely different perspective to an entirely different rhythm and with an entirely different cast or litany of significant details. And that's what makes it so fresh. And this leads to another thing. I'm writing in a genre, and I respect genre. I'm not trying to destroy genre, trying to support genre. And genre has certain obligations. If you're going to do a novel set in the 40s in World War II in occupied Europe, you've got to have a train in it. An undercover agent. Come on, that's one of your obligations. You've also got to have a Luger in it. Come on, you've got to have a Luger in it. If you're not doing that, you're not doing your job somehow. And those familiarities are, particularly if you can find a fresh way to present them or a fresh attitude by which to present them, are what makes the work interesting. And that's really the point. That's the essence, in my opinion, of cool stuff.
Totally agreed. It's you could take the familiarity of a Hitchcock film, for example, where you see that the everyday person has somehow got himself wrapped up in something that he had no interest in, no preparation for. And you see the same setup in half of Hitchcock's films.
Yes.
But they're so different, we don't really think of them as being the same setup. And this almost, I can almost call it a trope of World War II thriller.
What does that word mean, by the way? I hear it. I think I've used it, but I'm not real clear on what it means. Is it an archetype?
It's the familiar, the obligation, the familiarity with a situation or a character, or
That means that 50% of the time I've used it correctly.
Yeah, like the least likely suspect is a trope of detective stories, for example.
All right.
It's just like you expect it; it has to be there. That's what a trope is.
Yeah.
So the trope of the train scene for a World War II book. I'm sure half of Eric Ambler's stories were set on trains.
Yes.
I remember a couple of them. I can't remember the title right now, but certainly Graham Greene did, and Stamboul Train.
Yes.
So you did it, but the variation of how you got Basil out of that situation, to me, was the most original part of what anybody was able to do in that situation. It was the most original, and it was just utterly brilliant.
Well, thank you so much. I wasn't I wasn't aware of being original. You're never aware of the value of what you're doing. You're just looking for something that A is different and B seems to work. It's work or it doesn't work, and that's really the guidepost for maneuvering your way through the obstacle course of the process of writing the novel. And I have to say that sometimes it doesn't work. I don't. I think it always works in this book, but I did write a book in which I laugh at this. The only solution for the problem that I had put Bob Lee's swagger in was that exactly when he needed the biggest snowstorm in history hit. And I kept waiting for people to say, wasn't he kind of lucky there? No, no, they had snowstorm, but no one said a thing about it. So there you go.
This is a little off subject, but I don't even know if you know this yet. Today, Basil's War, and if you'll excuse the language, I don't know who's listening, but close your ears if you're easily offended because I'm going to use a vulgarism. Amazon had your book, had Basil's War, as the #1 book on military thrillers and the #1 book on historical mysteries.
That's
#1.
That's so exciting. I don't think I've been. I mean, my greatest triumph as a high school athlete was #3. So #1 is new ground for me.
What's better? And the reviewers, one of the things that happened in the publishing world, most people, readers, know that there are book reviews in magazines and newspapers, but in the publishing world, there are trade journals, which are written for and produced for people in the industry, publishers, editors, even printers, booksellers, certainly librarians, and so on. Publishers Weekly, Kirkus Reviews, Booklist are the 3 largest of those trade journals. And the highest honor that you can get in a review is to have a star. It's one thing to get a really good review, which is always the goal. It's what everybody dreams of. But every issue of all the reviews that they do, there may be 1 or 2 books that get a star. And Steve's book, Basil's War, got a starred review in every one of them. And they ended, and I want you to keep this in mind, Steve, please. They ended saying, everybody will want another book with Basil because this character is so great. The door is open for a sequel to this book with Basil. Now, what you have done to me is remarkable. You have created an iconic figure in Bob Lee Swagger. Everybody knows this character. Everybody who reads thrillers, military books, espionage books, that kind of book. Everybody knows Bob Lee Swagger, and the film made from him, Shooter, may not have been the greatest film of all time, but it captured the character. We know who the character is, and that character is fairly consistent in all of the Bob Lee Swagger books. So when I talk about when in the past, when I've talked about you in my bookshop or to fans, people that I know, I talk about, I love the Bob Lee Swagger series. I love those books. I've read every single one of them, and I can never wait for the next one. Having said that, here you've come across and you've created another character that is utterly different, could not be more different than Bob Lee Swagger. He's British. He doesn't seem to have any particular skill as a sniper or hand-to-hand fighter or that sort of thing. He is just really smart, and he's funnier than Bob Lee, although Bob Lee in dialogue is pretty terrific. Is pretty funny. The books are not situationally funny, but the dialogue in the other books is funny. But to have created another character that has all the makings of an iconic figure in Basil St. Florian is, to me, miraculous.
Well, thank you very much. He comes from, I think I said this last night, I have this, I believe for 75 years that I was switched at birth with the 3rd Earl of Bedford in a little Kansas City hospital. And I meant to be the 3rd Earl of Bedford, but somehow I ended up little Stevie Hunter from Northfield, Illinois. That seems a great injustice. I can't figure that out. So when I did, Basil was my chance to indulge that Anglophile torrent that runs through me that I generally keep tucked away. I just have an admiration and a respect for and a love of most things British. And my image of Great Britain and British culture is probably to some degree inaccurate, but that's okay. I mean, it's idealized to be sure, but I think that's okay. And it begins with the accent. God, I love the way those people talk. And you know how anyone comes through America with a British accent and everyone assumes he could be a plumber, but everyone assumes he's the 5th Duke of Bedford.
when they open their mouths, their IQ is raised in the other person's mind by 20 points.
Yeah, that's exactly the truth. And so this was a sort of a chance to cosplay my affection for the Brits, and I hope they take it well. I believe they will.
But you did do it before. You did it in the Ripper book.
The Ripper, and I had a great deal of fun there too. Even though that was somewhat, it's not a subject that one wants to be too glib about. But I was just astounded how pleasant it was to write in those voices. And I sort of want to recapture that. And I'm not to claim that I do it well, but I will claim that, this I know for a fact, that when I do it, I just enjoy the whole, the full 9 yards of it. It's just great pleasure.
I gave Basil's War to a friend who is English.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I said, would you read this? Does it sound right? I mean, if this is written by a guy in Baltimore, does it sound right? He did not make a single suggestion. He said he's got it right. Your ear is obviously terrific.
Well, that's very pleasing to me. I had not heard that. I suppose you saved that for telling me before an audience so you could see me sort of glow magisterially and perhaps rise off the chair. Maybe even 18 feet. That's very good news. That's very pleasing.
Oh yeah, that was early in the process.
I'm glad to hear that.
I don't show all of the stuff about how the sausage is made. We have a very good copy editor who worked over the book. You saw her copy edits, and there was very little that she was saying. There's a problem here. There's a problem here. There's very, very little. This was a beautifully produced book right from the beginning. So I guess I have to ask if you're going to be writing some more about Basil St. Florian.
Possibly. I've got a variety of ideas. This is, for some reason, this has been is the word fecund, F-E-C-U-N-D, fecund, however it's pronounced, meaning
fecund, indeed,
vegetable rich, crop rich period of my imaginative life. And I've got another book coming out. I'm in the midst, and that's in January. I've got a book that I'm working on now that'll come out in 2024. And I have a variety of other projects in mind. And I always, here's another Steve Hunter joke. I say, I'll continue writing novels until the day I die, because what else would I do between 4 and 4:15 each afternoon? it's muscular. It's like your brain is muscular and your imagination is a sport. And if you do a certain thing a lot, you get very limber, you get very flexible. You can just move in ways that you've never moved before just because I don't know. I mean, I don't know why that is, but I feel like that's, again, I make no claim, but from the inside, for greatness or anything, but from the inside, it all feels good about now. I mean, I've written some books where I thought, suppose they noticed the snowstorm. You know, the damn snowstorm. Oh, I know, make it a tornado. Yeah, good, Steve, good. I just have, I don't know what's filling me up. Maybe it's having grandchildren, but I'm very ambitious at this point in my life, and I want to keep going as long as I can and have as much fun as I can.
No reason why you can't. I mean, there's certainly publishers who are eager to see your books, and readers who are eager to see them and read them and buy them and read them. So, you know, best of all worlds.
Well, it seems to be.
Does it come fairly easily to you now, sitting down at the typewriter and writing the story?
A story, meaning a short story, a technical short story.
No, I mean a novel. You don't like short stories.
I know what you mean. That would not come easy to me. At this point, I've just decided, I'm only going to do books that I really, really want to do. Without going into details, I was in a publishing situation, where they had very grand plans for me, but they wanted me to write a certain kind of book. And, that's their right. They're spending the money. They can, they're the bosses. And I have to either go along with it or, make some business arrangements. And at my age, I just did not feel like writing books for other people. Not to say that had I written the kind of books they wanted, they wouldn't have been good and successful. But I just did not. To me, I want the pleasure of the journey. That's really much more important to me than any kind of financial reward at the end. And I don't understand these guys who hire assistants, write a book for someone else, or I just don't get that. Or I also don't understand books that are tailored exquisitely to the marketplace, and you understand exactly, which demographics it appeals to.
That's not you.
So my books appeal to seven British veterans of World War II. That's a great demographic. Those seven guys, they'll be happy as hell, I tell you.
That's the demographic we went after.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I just had a really good question. Well, I thought it was a good question. And of course, then I forgot it because it took more than 10 seconds and it vanishes. I know. Do you like the process of writing? Do you enjoy the actual sitting down in front of your typewriter, computer, notepad, whatever it is, and start writing? Do you enjoy that?
The answer is yes. However, with some caveats, and one of them is I'm a great believer in that. One of my theories about writing is that it demands that you get to a certain level of concentration. And getting there is not easy, but even harder than that is staying there. And so what I understand is I'm good for about an hour, and I work for an hour. I seem to be able to get up there pretty well, but at a certain level, I know that at the end of an hour, it's all going to get fuzzy. And I will usually, and that's why I joke about between 4 and 4:15. It's really, it's both Hemingway and Graham Greene agreed with this principle, and they both said the best time to quit is when it's going well and you know what's going to happen next. Because when you start the next day, you've got that energy, and you don't want to go to bed not knowing how he gets off the train. And when you've got that figured, then you can quit. And then the next day you get him off the train. Green wrote 500 words a day, precisely, exactly every day. And it is said that sometimes he would end in the middle of a sentence because he'd hit 500, ding, and then he'd say, young man, I'll have a lime Ricky, please. That sort of thing. And it was just, so what I believe in is work hard, enjoy it, but don't kill yourself unless, you're facing some deadline or, towards the end, you pick up because you see the end of the forest and that energy animates you. But you don't want to, you don't want to beat yourself to a frazzle every day. I was at a dinner once with John Irving, and one of the boasts he made was that he'd finally worked it so that he could write fiction 12 hours a day. I thought, what? 12 hours a day? Good God, man. I couldn't, it was just beyond me to do that. An hour, maybe on a good day, an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe under pressure, I would write an hour in the morning and then another hour, 4 hours later. But I need the time off. I need to gather. I need to rest. I have to put my mind in some other world. And that's, that's what works for me. So that's what I do. I can't say.
I've been in publishing for 45 years, and my heroes are writers. I can't do what you do and what other fiction writers do. I can't do it. So I hold writers in tremendous esteem, and I talk about the writing process with a lot of writers who've become very good friends. And one of them, not Graham Greene, who just ends when the clock goes off, but deliberately ends mid-sentence.
Oh, okay.
So that the next day, when he comes, he just has to finish the sentence, and already he's in rhythm. And
that's good. Yeah.
And when I asked you if you enjoy writing, I ran a BoucherCon in New York. And one of the speakers that I had at that BoucherCon, this is almost 45 years ago, was Isaac Asimov. And he said, I love writing so much. I love it more than anything else in the world. And somebody in the audience raised her hand and said, oh, come on. If somebody said you had 6 months left to live, what would you do? And he said, type faster. He loved writing.
That's right. Yeah. Now let me say something here. You've been so good to me, and this has been all about me. But I hope our audience understands that you're one of the great figures in American publishing. You are a friend, as you say, to many, many writers who come to you for success, come to you for advice, and career guidance, and just good fellowship and charm. And as we can all tell, you're a witty boulevardier. He said 19 wives. What do you expect? And it's just in my relationship, I guess we've known each other 15 or 20 years. It's been wonderful. It's just it's meant so much to me. And
thank you so much. You warm my heart. I mean, that's a great thing to hear. And I'm blessed with the friends that I have who are writers, because I find writers absolutely fascinating.
Yeah,
they have such, their brains, their creativity in their minds, the way they look at things is so different from the other people that I know. But I love being called a boulevardier. Is that what you called me?
Yeah, I guess.
Boulevardier. Joyce Carol Oates. I was winning an award, and Joyce Carol Oates was presenting it to me, and she called me the bon vivant. And the bon vivant.
Oh, there you go. That's good. That's good.
Oh, yes. I'm carrying that around for the rest of my life.
Well, if I had a glass of vodka, I'd toast you. Gene, could you give me some vodka, please?
It's urgent. I wonder if John from Murder by the Book is listening, because he said that he would pop in if there were questions that anybody had written for Steve, or obviously for me, but more likely for Steve. And there you are. Hi, John.
Yep.
You're back.
Hello. So we do have a couple of questions. So Kathy wants to know, for both of you, what are you working on now? Let's start with Otto.
I'm working on Steve to write another Basil St. Florian book for me.
And I am working on this is a bit of dream project for many years, and I finally sold it, and it actually, Basil is in it. I'm working on a long, involved World War II novel, and for me, it's just been paradise. I just so happy to get back. It was my first subject. It's always had a place in my heart. For a writer, it's the most verdant, imaginary landscape you can imagine, and I'm having a great deal of fun.
It's so nice, as a reader and a bookseller, Steve, just to hear you talk about, we were lucky enough to host you at the store when you had your Jack the Ripper book come out, and just to see you kind of take time to kind of do those passion projects that you really want to work on. It's always great to see authors kind of stretching themselves like that.
Well, thank you. Really, passion is what it's all about. I always. Well, I like to have a rhythm in my work, and the rhythm seems to be a short, fast, percussive novel like Dirty White Boys, and then something longer, more historically rooted, more, if I dare say so, deeper, more connected with real life problems. And that rhythm, it's something I permanently decided. It's something that was decided for me on the inside. And it's been a helpful operating. I was ready to get back to something a little bit, quote, longer and more involved, and that's why I'm so in love with this project, this War II project I'm doing.
So, what is something that you each have read recently that you love? Start with Steve this time.
Oh, I can answer that quickly. Basil's War. That's just great. It is great. I don't want to take too long, but people are here to hear Steve, not me. But because I work as a publisher, I have 4 publishing companies that I'm running, and so most of my reading is manuscripts. And for some writers, I read those manuscripts 2, 3, 4 times. As they get rewritten and worked on and fine-tuned. And I'm doing a series of best mystery stories of the year. So I read a lot of short stories. I have a reader who culls the 3,000 to 4,000 stories that he looks at every year. 3,000 to 4,000, the fastest reader in the universe. And then she sends me all of the things that might be appropriate. So 200 to 300 short stories, and I love short stories. I really do. I'm sorry you can't write them more quickly, Steve, but I really enjoy short stories. So the first book, best mystery stories of the year, is coming out from Mysterious Press in September, edited by Lee Child, and it's got a story by Sue Grafton. It's got a story by Stephen King and by James Lee Burke and Sarah Koreski. It's just a terrific book, and I love when it comes together and there's a great book. So that's been my reading for quite a few years now, short stories and manuscripts.
As for me, I made the comment earlier that I hoard my concentration. I don't spend it. And one of the sad facts of that is I don't have much. It's not. I have plenty of time, but I don't have much grit or gumption to read. And the only books I've read from start to finish, I've had to because I wrote them. And I just cannot get into a long narrative. I prefer to spend my off time in various and sundry time killers. Allow me to point out that today Royal Pitcher pitched a pitched a perfect game for the first time. It wasn't a pitched a no-hitter.
No-hitter.
And it was, something like that is very pleasing to me. I follow the teams. Sports is stories. And that's where, you're able to get your fill of, and people need stories. And I get my narrative nourishment from stories of my narrative nourishment, a lot from sports. But it's just, I'm so apologetic to my confreres in the business. I just don't read what I should read. I am very sorry for that, but it's what it is what it is.
John, working in a store, I'm sure that the question that you hear most in the store is, what have you read lately that you like? What should I read? And my answer now, most of the time, is I'm sorry, I don't have time to read. I'm so busy reading.
Yeah.
For work. But there are a few writers that I do read virtually every book when it comes out. Steve is one, and Nelson DeMille is one, and most books by Mike Connolly and Lee Child. Those are and now Tana French is a new discovery for me last year, and I've become addicted to her work. So, but those are very few and far between.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see since McKenna and I have been the ones who've been doing most of the virtual events. It's interesting to see how much that's changed kind of our reading taste too, because now it's easier to find people that can moderate and kind of have conversations. But for when we were first started doing this, a lot of the conversations were just her and I interviewing the authors. So we were reading a lot more kind of tailored to that than kind of necessarily what we would kind of just normally pick up. So it's been interesting to see that too.
Yeah.
When you're a professional, there are different obligations. I loved movies desperately for years and years and years. And then I became a professional movie critic, and I was suddenly had an obligation to cover the market. And I'm seeing movies that you couldn't have kidnapped me and taken me in a bag to see. And I'm sitting there, and it's my duty to judge something that's totally inimical to my interests, and I just tried to be as professional and fair about it as I could. But that, professional indulgence or professional duty to an art form is the fastest way to learn to hate that art form. Believe me, And when you said, I can't read because I'm too busy reading, my version of that would be, I can't read because I'm too busy not reading.
And so, Otto, I know that you're joining us tonight, as kind of you published it. But so if anybody out there is watching, can you tell them a little bit about what's going on at the bookstore? If people are in New York, are you guys open for them to come visit you guys?
Yeah, we were closed. We were by law, and we weren't allowed in the store between the middle of March and June 8th. On June 8th, I opened the store. We put a sign on the door that said you have to have a mask to come in, and we're limiting to 6 customers at a time, which is hilarious because we were lucky to get 6 people in a day. It was just people weren't using public transportation, and largely they're still not, although the city is definitely opening more and more. The governor and the mayor are authoritarian and would make these weird decisions. Like in a restaurant, you were only allowed to have 25% capacity in New York City, but you could have 50% capacity in the rest of New York State. Why in New York City you had to wear your mask coming in? You had to have a table 6 feet apart. Why is it different in New York City than in the rest of New York State? I've never known. No one's been able to answer that. But yeah, people are coming in again. Because we've been in business for 42 years. April 13th was our 42nd anniversary. And so we have a lot of customers who have been longtime customers, good, loyal customers. And they ordered a lot of books from our website or via email or telephone. Even if they didn't come, even if they lived 8 blocks away, they would call and say, could you send these books? And they did. And so we actually got through the pandemic, the worst of the pandemic, in decent shape. I had to put my staff on furlough during those months where we were totally locked down. But I was able to hire everybody back the day we were allowed to open. Granted, the Mysterious Press and some of my publishing enterprises helped float the store a little bit. Some of the money was redirected to the store rather than my bank account. But it's been worth it. And it's great seeing customers that I've known for years coming back and saying hello again. It's really been terrific. So we haven't suffered as much as some people. And I know a lot of people have. A lot of people went out of business permanently. But we ducked that. And I'm glad that you did too. I've been a friend of your store since its inception. When it was being opened, I was talking to the owner and helping her through some stuff because I made every mistake it's possible to make. Starting a business. I was a sports writer in my early years. I didn't know anything about running a bookshop. Martha Farrington was the founder of Murder by the Book. And we had a lot of phone calls together when she was opening the store. So I've always had a warm spot, and I visited your store many times with authors, or when I was on a book buying tour for the bookshop to buy rare books. I would visit Murder by the Book always down south.
Yeah, that's been one of the great things about kind of just bookselling as a career is how willing other booksellers are to help each other out. Early on in the pandemic, we had people helping us out, getting up to speed on virtual events and stuff like that. So it's great to hear that you guys are doing well too. So if anybody out there is watching, as you said, you can visit them. You can come visit them. As Otto said, you can visit them online and order stuff from them. So we are at time for this evening, but just to recap before we head out. So we've been chatting with Stephen Hunter, whose new book, Basil's Ward, just came out yesterday. We have signed book plates to go with it. So if you have not ordered your copy, you can visit murderbooks.com and order that, and we'll get you a signed book plate. And we've been joined by Otto Penzler, who's been gracious enough to moderate the conversation with us this evening. If you tuned in late and you missed any part of the talk, once we are done, Facebook and YouTube will archive it, so you'll be able to rewatch from the beginning. Sometimes YouTube takes just a little bit longer for it to pop up because there's an extra archiving step or two that it does, but you'll be able to rewatch those. And while you're there, we hope you will also check out all of the other virtual events that we've been doing in the last year. We pretty much have most mystery authors that have had something come out in the last year, any mystery subgenre that you're interested in. So I hope that y'all will check that out. Stephen and Otto, thank you again for joining us this evening. It was so great to see you.
Thank you for having us, John. Give my best to McKenna, please.
Will do. Y'all take care.
Thank you, Otto. I appreciate it.